So today, want to get some gut checks and hopefully walk away with some ideas so that we feel confident and in good shape.
Yes, definitely. This is a lot about getting feedback, and already some of the feedback from that we've gotten from the community is what to name this feature. We've been calling it internally Minion Forge, Minion Hatchery, but after getting some really good names from the community, we've settled on Shadow Forge as the official name of the feature. So without further ado, let's dive in, and I'll second the idea that please ask any questions. That's what we're here for. So let's dive into the Shadow Forge. Just some kind of guiding principles to this gameplay is that, again, for Shadowcorn holders, there's fewer. So there's only so many Shadowcorns, so we want to keep the gameplay passive so that Shadowcorn holders don't have to do much to really engage with the feature. So a lot of husk and item production is you stake the Shadowcorn, and over time they just produce, come back and get your rewards. Easy peasy. Then this feature is meant to reward Shadowcorn holders in a similar fashion to what we've done previously. In this case, every day there will be daily Unim and this new current item, Dark Marks, rewarded for players who produce minions. Another thing that we want is for letting players specialize in kind of what minions they produce. And so having different rituals that they could use to produce different minions is a way to let Shadowcorn players specialize. And also, we want to be mindful that, this is all on web, all on chain. So we want to try and keep the number of transactions to a minimum so that it doesn't get too overwhelming. So this is you were going to say something?
I was just going to say, I like it. Just seeing, multiple concepts in one transaction. I love that we're trying to think about, it's not just minimizing clicks, but also minimizing transactions and trying to make that experience as fluid as possible while still trying to keep as much of it on chain as possible. So there's always going to be some transactions. There's benefits and trade-offs, but it is, the point of this product is to be more on chain and this kind of Web3 first experience. So keep that in mind, but also trying to balance that. And one thing that I was concerned about was when I first saw the spec was that it might be too passive, because there are aspects of our game where players have said they want more active gameplay, but we've gotten some recent feedback that's more on the opposite for Shadowcorn specifically, where a lot of our Shadowcorn holders are already really active in the Unicorn ecosystem. So there was some concern about, hey, I don't want to have too much to do to make sure I can earn my Unum. So just wanted to highlight that we've heard that feedback, and the idea of trying to keep it passive but still strategic has been one of the pillars we've designed around.
Definitely. And this is just the first of a couple Shadowcorn features. For those that want more gameplay, that's going to be coming in Act 2, which will follow the Shadow Forge soon after. So welcome to the Shadow Forge. Our art team, as always, is hitting it out of the park. Not necessarily final, but this is kind of our idea for what the Shadowcorns are up to, like where they're hatching their plans and creating their minions.
Yeah, there's this is sort of just a teaser. There's obviously a lot more with the inventory, and there's some other little snippets throughout this presentation. But if you look at the bottom, that's just kind of a teaser of the dashboard work. A lot of that is the handiwork of Franklin, who we hired from the community a couple months ago. He's done some really great work on this. There's a lot of numbers, there's just a lot of different resources and data points, which is good in terms of the strategy. And I'm really glad we've had him on board to help visualize all of it in a way that really does feel pretty manageable. And I think this is a good little teaser of, you can see a lot of different things between the minions, the husks, the dark marks, and the daily unum, your claim bonuses, all that kind of stuff, but laid out pretty well. And as Jeff mentioned, this might even be tweaked / upgraded by the time it launches. This is sort of a work in progress.
Yeah, and then to kind of second that, please note that numbers you see here aren't
yeah, these are
final
placeholder numbers.
exactly.
These are,
Exactly.
yeah, these are Franklin just putting numbers in as he's designing. These are not based on actual math, so don't hyperanalyze.
Yeah.
Good call.
Um, Once you're ready to produce minions, you go to the ritual section where you could use husks and materials to create minions. You have your inventory, which shows you all on-chain items from your wallet in a neat and easy way to just see what you have. And then finally, there's an upgrade menu to upgrading your Shadow Forge.
And one question on this one for the harvest. So you stake your shadow corns to produce husks. Do you need to unstake and restake your shadow corns at all, like back in the day when we were putting unicorns in the dark forest? Or is this just you stake your unicorns at some point, or shadow corns rather, at the beginning, then they just stay staked and they're producing husks and ingredients that whole time?
They stay staked and produce husks and ingredients over time. The caveat is that shadow corns will have a storage limit based on the stats and rarity and quality of the shadow corn. So there will come a point where if you don't come back in time, they'll hit that cap and stop producing. And at that point, you could stake and restake your shadow corn in one transaction if you'd like to collect the items. Yeah, once you stake, it will continue to
I see.
Harvest.
So you can leave it staked, but there's an incentive to sort of regularly log in and claim the rewards before your bag fills up, and then you can't get. It's sort of like when you're away and your mailbox is full, they stop stuffing mail in there after a while until you empty your mailbox.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
So first is, if you want to produce husks or ingredients, you'll see all your shadow corns listed in the menu. We decide not to go with the normal inventory. Choose your shadow corn and then choose everything, because most people have just a few. So you'll see all your shadow corns on the screen, and for each shadow corn, you can decide what husk or what ingredient you want them to produce. Here you'll see how many of each husk the particular shadow corn would produce per hour. Husks, how many husks per hour is going to be, again, based on the quality of the shadow corn, its stats, its rarity, its class. Like, does the class of the husk match that class of the shadow corn? But to inform, what you'd be most efficient at producing, you'd see how many husks per hour for each of the husks. Same thing with the ingredients.
So does every shadow corn make a husk per hour for all 5 husk types? Or do they only make husks for their class?
No, they can make any husk, but they get a bonus if the husk matches the class
Their
of
class.
the shadow corn.
Got it. Okay.
So, practically speaking, it's going to be advantageous for players to usually just produce the husks of their class. But
if you need to, you can choose to suboptimally do other stuff. If you only have one shadow corn, for example, it gives you some flexibility.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay.
And for each husk, you'll be able to see kind of how you get to that husks per hour figure. You'll see what is your base production, what are the bonuses that are being applied. Just to inform you of why you're seeing, how efficient your shadow corn is. That way that you'll be able to understand why it is efficient at producing certain husks over others.
Yeah. So if you kind of pretty straightforward, but we'll just sort of run through it. You've got the base production of just how much you get. You can see level 3 hatchery. As mentioned at the beginning, you can level up your hatchery with dark marks. So as you level it up, you get production bonuses with each level. And then the other bonuses, this would be from a mythic Shadowcorn, the super rare one, so a 30% bonus. And then the class matching down there at the bottom. So pretty straightforward, but I like that we get the breakdown, so you get to see all the numbers.
Yep. As mentioned before, once you stake your Shadowcorn, it will continue to produce husks passively, but there is a cap on how many it can produce, and once the cap is reached, it won't produce anymore until you come back and reap the rewards. When you do reap, there will be a transaction to take the rewards and put them into your wallet. But you'll have the option to restake the Shadowcorn after you collect the rewards, should you choose to, when you decide to reap the husks and items that you've produced.
So Jackie Ace is curious, how wide is the spread between common, rare, and mythic Shadowcorns in terms of husk production? Like, are mythics 10x compared to common, 3x compared to common? Can you give us sort of like a general like order of magnitude spread across the classes?
Currently, we're thinking that rares are going to be, the rare bonus is going to be 50% and mythic 200%. That's currently the numbers we're working at, but again, like we're continuing to examine numbers and everything, so those aren't final. But we did want to make using a rare and using a mythic feel a lot more productive than using a common.
Gotcha. Common's baseline, rares 50% more than that, and then mythics 200% above baseline. Yeah, I mean, that kind of checks out with the spread. There's only 50 mythics out there. That's the other thing to remember. So they're exceptionally rare, really, when you think about it. And there's only 45 actually in the wild right now because we still have 500 eggs to hatch. So 1% chance to hit a mythic with those Shadowcorn eggs remaining. Just throwing that out there.
Seems like a gamble to take, potentially.
Hey, Jeff, I've rolled 100 on a D100 before. I'm just saying. No, I mean, I have, but it is a hell of a gamble.
For sure. So, now you've produced a lot of husks, and you're ready to craft some minions. You go over to the ritual tab, and you'll see a bunch of rituals that you can use to summon minions. Now, rituals is what we're calling recipes for crafting minions. And in the rituals tab, you'll see all the different rituals you have to use. Now, players will start out with 5 baseline recipes, one for each tier 1 minion, but they can collect more rituals to to craft minions in a way that's more efficient than the baseline recipes rituals that they own. So one thing that we're introducing is the idea of ritual NFTs. So I've already mentioned at the start, everyone will have 5 baseline rituals. Those are going to be the least efficient way to craft minions. But players could mint or buy ritual NFTs that will, in most cases, all cases really, be more efficient than the baseline rituals. These ritual NFTs can be minted with dark marks and other items, and it will allow you to produce more minions using less materials than the baseline rituals. So different ritual NFTs could produce a minion either lower husks or greater output. There's going to be it's a way for players to kind of specialize. So um, if you're, you want to do very well at producing fire minions, and you find a ritual that's, really produces a lot of fire minions at a lower husk cost, that's going to be way better than using the baseline ritual. So that's kind of our thinking in introducing this ritual dynamic. In the beginning, it's going to be mainly about efficiency, but over time, as we introduce more minions that are not baseline, like tier 2, tier 3 minions, these ritual NFTs will be the only way to produce those minions. So over time, we think that this ritual NFT system will be really a way to have Shadowcorn players specialize and stand out from one another. Finally, minion production is instant. It does require a transaction, but once you complete that transaction, you'll get the minions instantly. We figured that we already have a time element with husk production that we don't need it when it comes to producing minions.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I like it.
And as mentioned, besides being able to buy and sell rituals on Haku, they can be minted using dark marks and other items. So it's a way for players to kind of get new rituals and decide if they want to keep them for themselves or sell it. To try and control the population of rituals, nearly all ritual NFTs will, except for the baseline rituals that you start out with, will have a certain amount of charges or number of uses that you could use it. It could be 10, 25, 50. That's part of what gets rolled when you mint a ritual. So, you can mint these rituals and their supply will increase, but as you use them, eventually they'll be consumed. And that's one way we're going to try and keep the population under control of ritual NFTs.
So in a lot of ways, you could kind of call rituals like recipes, so to speak. Yep. So you have the Shadowcorn that gives you all of these different husks. You combine the husks with different stuff, and a ritual as kind of like the recipe, and then that's what gives you the minion. And having that ritual component kind of gives you different ways to customize the output and adjust your minions or whatever, depending on what you want to do, and also give an opportunity to let other people kind of enter the market. Like if you don't have a Shadowcorn, you could in theory buy a ritual and some husks that are being sold on the market and create your own minions. Is that correct?
Not right now. For right now, Shadowcorn or the Shadow Forge, you need a Shadowcorn to participate.
Okay.
Once we get Act 2 and gameplay out, one of the challenges is going to be try and balance the population disparity. Should we not be able to do so effectively, we do have contingent plans for getting non-Shadowcorn players to be able to participate in some of these loops.
I see.
Particularly not in the production of husks. We do want to keep that Shadowcorn only, but particularly in the production of minions, we have contingency plans if we can't get the populations to work.
I see. So not out of the box, but this kind of creates a framework where in theory that sort of stuff is possible, especially once we have like the Twilight Tactics stuff out. Then there's this this window where like minions could be like a thing where people could participate without having a Shadowcorn, that kind of stuff. So getting ahead of myself here. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries, but it's a great question. but yeah, we'll just have to see how it pans out once Twilight Tactics gets released.
And maybe a moment where we can just pause and tackle this question that's kind of tangential to what we're talking about. Is there going to be delegation for Shadowcorns in any sense?
Not at the start. We find that the median amount of Shadowcorns players have is one. We do recognize that there's some holders who have over 100, but we feel like it was very difficult to justify kind of adding that extra layer of delegation into this. I'm not necessarily closing the door to it, but just it's not going to be part of the initial release.
That's a good way to summarize it. I think with all these kind of features, we need player growth. So really we're trying to focus a lot of our product and design on, finishing the game loop and fulfilling the roadmap, but also trying to prioritize stuff that will help stimulate some growth and also retain players. So if we can make a strong case for it, and there are a lot of people in the community that, for some reason feel like we need that, and we can justify the build time relative to the trade-off, it's not impossible. It's not like there's some reason why we technically can't do it. But yeah, it's in the low single digits of people that have like more than 10 Shadowcorns, or like 50 plus or 100 plus. So not to say that there isn't a solution that could be figured out there, but it is a relatively small amount of users that have that many in mass. I think about like a third or 25% have like less than 5 Shadowcorns, like 1 to 4, and then a huge portion of the population just doesn't have any Shadowcorns. So that's another thing to consider. While Shadowcorns are very important, it's like, maybe at most a third of our players have a Shadowcorn. I think that might even be on the high end, the generous end. It's probably closer to like 20 or 25. So just all things to consider with that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. As we've discussed, when you're producing a minion using a ritual, you can produce as many of that minion as you have resources for, or charges on the ritual for, as you want. So if you get enough husks, you can produce a ton of minions in one transaction. On that note, the Shadowcorn loot boxes will have a lot of husks in them, as well as even chances to get some minions. So it's kind of like a speed up to the Shadow Forge, where once Twilight Tactics drops and you need a lot of minions, getting a lot of Shadowcorn loot boxes and opening them is a way to speed up your production of both husks and minions. That will allow you to just increase the amount of minions you have and use them immediately.
And where do Shadowcorn loot boxes come from?
Well, we've given out a lot from the Throwing Shade event and elsewhere,
okay.
and again, kind of trying to think of trying to balance the populations. Should we find that Unicorn players, just smash minion squads way more than Shadowcorn players can produce minions, we have Shadowcorn loot boxes as like a tool to try and inject husks and minions into the economy. So we have that in our back pocket as a way to try and keep minion production up, should we need to, for the gameplay, because we are, there's going to be population dynamics, and we need as many things to try and balance out the two factions once it comes time to do battle and Twilight Tactics.
Gotcha.
Finally, upgrading the Shadow Forge. This is mainly just to make you more efficient in producing husks and items. Every upgrade that you do will increase the baseline production of any Shadowcorn or for any husk and potentially items. It'll take dark marks and some items that Shadowcorns can produce. So yeah, it's not mandatory to ever upgrade your hatchery, at least not initially. But you'll get bonuses if you upgrade your hatchery, and then certain rituals may require a hatchery level of a certain a hatchery level of a, or minion for shadow forge of a certain level to use the ritual. So it behooves you to upgrade your shadow forge over time, but it's never going to be absolutely mandatory to produce husks and craft minions. So, once Twilight Tactics come out, there's going to be uses for the minions you produce. But even when that's out and even beforehand, producing minions is a way to get a share of dark marks in Unum that will be given out each day. So each day we're allocating a certain amount of Unum and a certain amount of dark marks to be distributed, and players they'll be distributed to Shadowcorn players based on the amount of minions Shadowcorns players have produced in that 24-hour period that resets at midnight UTC. So the more minions you produce, the larger the share you're going to get. And these rewards become available after the resetting of the day, where we calculate how many minions were produced that day and how many each player contributed. And you'll see what daily rewards you get once you come back to the Shadow Forge the following day. This is going to be continual, so not just in the before Twilight Tactics. So it's just a regular part of the Shadow Forge and how Shadowcorn players could earn by producing minions. Once Twilight Tactics come out, there will be additional ways to earn by engaging in Twilight Tactics, but this is going to be just a core feature of the Shadow Forge, this daily dark marks and Unum giving out. It also allows us to better control the Unum and dark mark economy. So depending on how we see engagement, what we see with Unum in the core game, we could better set those daily dark mark and Unum rewards so that we're giving the rewards we were giving out are considerable, but it's not subject to scale or inflation outside of our control. So we'll see a similar system in Twilight Tactics where there will be daily rewards for Shadowcorn players and Unicorn players based on activity they do in Act 2. But daily rewards is a core feature of Shadowcorn, and it's meant to incentivize the production of minions, which will be very important in future gameplay.
Sweet.
So again, knowing I know I keep reiterating the point, but knowing the population disparity, there's going to be a need for a lot of minions in Twilight Tactics and future gameplay, and so linking the daily rewards to minions produced will help make sure there is enough minions to really get into the different gameplay modes that will be coming up. So that's all the key features of the Shadow Forge. Just to kind of reiterate, you can passively or stake your Shadowcorn to passively produce husks and ingredients over time. Use rituals and consume husks to create minions. See everything you've have and produced from your wallet in the inventory, and upgrade the Shadow Forge to get bonuses and make your Shadowcorns more efficient.
And remind me, where do rituals come from originally? Like, I have a Shadowcorn, I stake it, I'm getting husks and ingredients. Where do I get those original rituals? Do I craft those? Do I get dropped those? Are they a chance? Yeah, where do those come from?
So all Shadowcorn holders start out with 5 baseline rituals, one for each class, so they can produce tier 1 minions. Those rituals will be the least efficient, but have unlimited uses. To get more efficient rituals, you can pay Dark Marks and other items to mint them.
Okay.
And these rituals will be more efficient, but only have a limited amount of uses for them. So that's primarily how players will get new rituals, is by minting them, and then they can choose to keep them for themselves or trade them on the Haku. And so if you don't have enough Dark Marks, but you want more rituals, you could always kind of go shopping on Haku for them. But you'll be able to mint your own, once you earn enough of the Dark Marks and items needed.
Gotcha.
Sorry, go ahead.
Just a couple of questions. We can run through the glossary first if you want. Just get out of the way. It's important.
No, I mean, we can refer to the glossary if there's anything that we need to kind of answer questions.
So Illist mentioned here, Aaron said before, Shadowcorn loot box opening is exclusive only to Shadowcorn holders. Is this still the plan? Also, do you guys have any exact info on Shadowcorn LB content? What's in loot box content? What's inside, chances, etc.?
It will be only Shadowcorn players that can open loot boxes for the time being. Again, should we take the step of letting non-Shadowcorn holders engage with the Shadow Forge, that's likely to change. But for now, it is just going to be Shadowcorn players. Shadowcorn loot boxes will give out primarily lots of husks, so that you'll have stuff to create minions, but you also have chances of earning, a small amount of minions as well. So really, it kind of speeds up your efforts in the Shadow Forge by opening up a Shadowcorn loot box. We are not ready to release the content, or the contents are still not final. We want to wait until we have the final balancing of the Shadow Forge in place before we create the loot table. And mainly because, again, it comes back to this idea that Shadowcorn loot boxes are a speed up of your efforts in the Shadow Forge. So until we have the final balancing, we're not going to have... It makes more sense to have the final balancing of Shadow Forge down before we get to the loot tables for the Shadowcorn loot boxes. But once we do have that final, we will release them so you could see what exactly you have chances of getting.
Follow-up question on delegation. Do you have any sense if delegation will be possible with like Narval or Capital DAO type solutions?
I don't have any information.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. That's a good question. Ping Greg J in the Discord. That's the Narval guy, and ask him, maybe pick his brain a little bit. That's one of those maybe, kind of, sorta. I can see reasons why it might work. I can see reasons why it might not work. Yeah, let's explore, but no promises. Obviously, those are their own products, so can figure that out. Cool. So 404 asked a great, kind of basic question here. What do minions do? Jeff mentioned Act 2 a couple times. Really, this is the beginning of Act 2 with the Shadow Forge. The next patch after this one, the next big release after the Shadow Forge is Twilight Tactics. And that's what begins the actual quote unquote gameplay between the Shadowcorns, their minions, and the unicorns. So right now we're ramping up to that, right? We have all these quests now on the quest board that are the Shadowcorn quest lines. Some of them have a higher chance to fail. That unum from the failed quest goes into this pool that is going to be used to seed the rewards for the Shadowcorns. Lore being unicorn parties go in, sometimes they encounter Shadowcorns or their minions, and sometimes unicorns can die. That's really sad, but also a great deflationary mechanic in this whole thing. And when you fail quests, the Shadowcorns are like stealing those resources that you would have otherwise gotten from a successful quest. So this is setting the stage for that. You've got to remember that Shadowcorns are a fixed supply asset. There's only 3,000 of them that will ever be in existence. Basically everything else in our ecosystem is inflationary. We can create more of it, or you can breed unicorns to create more, all this kind of stuff. We can craft more jousting tickets, right? They're kind of by nature inflationary, and then we have ways to consume them. So for Shadowcorns, there has to be something that unicorns can battle that can die that aren't the Shadowcorns themselves. So the lore behind that is also that the Shadowcorns are they're sort of militant, they're sort of arrogant, they're larger, right? So they send out the husks to do their bidding. They wouldn't risk it themselves. They're very strategic. They want to kind of be at the helm and run the show without having to fight the battle themselves. Some of that is the backstory. When they hatched, they weren't fertile like the unicorns were. So that's why they're stuck at 3,000. The Shadowcorns are obviously aware that they can't procreate, so they have to create these minions instead to do stuff for them. And that's sort of the part of the torture of the Shadowcorns, right? They have to manufacture and kind of clone and alchemize their minions instead of being able to create spawn or children or little mentees themselves. So
Yeah, definitely. And this is kind of what's our thinking and why the daily rewards go for come with minion production versus things like passive husk production, is that we will need a lot of minions to balance out the population disparity. So us rewarding us buying the daily rewards to minion production kind of pushes or incentivizes the production of a lot of minions. And then, once Twilight Tactics drops, you'll be able to use all your minions into Twilight Tactics, which will both help Shadowcorns hopefully win the battle for the Dark Forest. But even if they don't, it will help earn you a lot more rewards once that feature is launched.
Looking here, I have a couple of assets. I don't know how much I have that's really exciting to share, but I might have a couple of loops. Let's see here. This is kind of just like background images and stuff. The graphics are really cool though, and I know the art team is excited to have like this big reveal that will hopefully have some wow effect. So no, I don't have a great teaser of like the I don't know if we have the minions and the unicorns. I don't know if there's footage of the actual battle, but the minion graphics I think look really great, and I think the visuals combined with the website and the dashboard, the mock-ups that I saw felt pretty slick. I know I'm biased and it's kind of my job to say that it looks slick, but I was pretty impressed when I saw it. I'm not gonna lie. Okay. Ad RU asked, is there Unum distribution? Oh no, he said link to the failed quest. Yes, Unum distribution amount is linked to the failed quest. Somebody earlier had asked though, do we know how much Unum has been accumulated so far from the failed quest? Do we have that anywhere on like a dashboard or anything? Or
Not as of now. I know it's being worked on. I don't have specific info as to when that's dropping, or but yeah, that's something that's being worked on right now.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh,
LG Corbin said it's coming on Monday to the leaderboard. So
cool.
So thank you, Corbin. Yeah, so look out for that after the Monday update.
And I know we're always hesitant to give timelines. Do we have any general sense of, we're still, I've been working with Sparkly and the CM team, and we're working on strategizing around this kind of like live roadmap reference, some sort of a document or fixture somewhere, so that there's a better sense of, when in doubt, go reference this thing and it's updated and it has a nice overview of our different verticals and kind of where they are, and if there are delays, it gets reflected on that sort of a thing. So work in progress until we have that stood up. Any thoughts about when we're hoping that at least the Shadow Forge will be out, and if we can tease any even like general timeline about the Twilight Tactics? I'm sure everyone would be very excited to have some dates to look forward to. So I'll put the spotlight on you for that one, Jeff.
So
he's sweating right now.
Shadow Forge, early September. We're quite well into development, but it's going to take a lot of testing and everything. And
oh, sorry.
And then Twilight Tactics. This is one, early to mid-November. So we definitely didn't want too big of a gap between the two, and there's going to be time to build up minion populations to fight. So, but yeah, that's rough estimates right now. But
no, that's great. I think take it all with a grain of salt. Obviously, things can change between now and then, but that's the current plan. And definitely want to echo for this release specifically. We are trying to ensure that not too much time passes in between the two, because they kind of benefit from each other, right? Like, we need a stockpile of minions to ensure when we start Twilight Tactics, there's enough resources to make it run. But at the same time, you don't want it to go too long, because you need the system to run. You don't want there to be an overpopulation. So certainly a balancing act, but great targets. So I'm going to let the dog out. He's role playing as a unicorn right now, chirping away.
We do have some other questions, and for anybody else who wants to step on the stage and ask a question, you're free to come on. We do have the request to speak button. It looks like a raised hand, so you can press that at any time, and we will select you when you're ready. Let's look at the questions right now. Crazy Crypto suggests, how do you feel about doubling the unit cost for the Minion Forge hatchery? The desire or urge of owning at least one minion is so huge. And if the required number of total minions can be at least the amount of available unicorns in the market, then we can get at least double the demand sink for Unim from the Minion Forge hatchery. This is for the purpose of putting a high pressure on Unim for the Unim price to go up.
Yeah, I saw the commenter on this, and I'll let you take the most of it here, Jeff. But I think it's just to set the stage on like high level, not to get soapboxy about economics, but you always have to remember there's like ripple effects and opportunity costs to every decision. So like a lot of ideas are like, well, why don't you just make people pay? People used to say this in Axie all the time, just charge them SLP to play a match. It's like that basically is just a tax. And yes, that can work, and people will pay taxes if like it's worth it on the other side. But it's also people hate taxes, and it also makes it harder for people that don't have as much money to play the game when they have to think about like, God damn, the rake on this thing is kind of high. So sometimes just raising the cost will also have an inverse effect of reducing demand, because price sensitivity does exist in the market. So it's never as simple as like, oh, just raise the prices and then the demand will be the same and we'll just burn way more tokens. There's always a trade-off whenever you increase or decrease one of those levers. But yeah, Jeff, maybe you have some more specifics on this one exactly.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, anywhere that we could effectively apply a unum sync, we're considering. For minions, we really want Twilight Tactics to be an event where everyone can engage in, and we don't want to put up too many barriers to engagement. So tier 1 minions, for example, we wouldn't want to charge Unum to produce those, but there will be higher tier minions that we'd feel more comfortable putting Unum as a cost for that. Mainly because if you want to avoid the cost, you could always just play with tier 1 minions. You're not going to be as powerful, but the way we're planning Shadowcorn player gameplay in Twilight Tactics, there's a quantity versus quality aspect of it, and players, with a lot more tier 1 minions could better contribute than players with, a lot fewer tier 2. So for higher tier minions, we are planning, kind of a unum cost. But for tier 1, we want that the bar for getting, minions pretty low for tier 1. Minting ritual NFTs, we are looking into. We are definitely considering adding a unum cost to that along with dark marks. Because again, everyone starts out with baseline rituals, so they could always go to those if they don't want to pay that unum cost. But for those that want to get, potentially more efficient rituals, having a tax there is not the worst thing, and it doesn't bar you from producing minions. That's the important thing. So we have to be careful when choosing where to apply unum syncs. We don't want to lower engagement in either the Shadowforge feature or Twilight Tactics, but I think there's areas where we can add it where those who want to be more efficient or better may feel comfortable paying the tax so they could do so. So that's kind of our thinking as to how to target where to apply unum syncs in the Shadowcorn gameplay.
That well said. And I would just maybe add on as a final point. I know it's really hard. It's easy for us because we can see the things that are in the pipeline. And for you guys, it's not always obvious like what's coming next. But think of this as sort of phase 1 of the Act 2 release. And then the Twilight Tactic game is next. Unicorns being able to die is definitely a key part of this loop, where up until now, unicorns have just been inflationary forever, right? There's no sync of unicorns dying or getting stuck unless somebody sends them to a burn address like manually, right? Now we have this mechanism where we don't want to kill a lot of unicorns, but it's great that this now opens the door to having a sync and a burn mechanism for these like really low stat unicorns. Right? You can almost think of it as like a little bit of a recycling machine. What do we do with these 1,000 total stat donkeys from the very beginning that really don't have a lot of use anymore? This is kind of now a use case. So we need enough minions and participation in this stage of the event to ensure the second stage of the event goes off without a hitch. And if that goes off without a hitch, we're also going to be burning unicorns and various other resources in the ecosystem on top of Unum. So while your head is in the right place and we do want to try to burn Unum and create meaningful syncs wherever possible, there's other parts of the ecosystem that we also want to be able to balance the kind of inflationary aspects and deflationary aspects. And for this loop, adding deflationary aspects to unicorns it's a really important switch that we're flipping for the first time. So again, feel free to correct me if I've got any of that wrong, Jeff, but there's just a lot of pieces to this more than just Unum sync.
Yeah. And to kind of echo what I said earlier on the unicorn side, we originally thought about, are we going to have an entry cost to play Twilight Tactics if you're a unicorn player? And we decided not to. So there will be, cooldown mechanics for unicorn usage, but again, we want a lot of players to engage in the event. So putting a cost in the way of engaging it doesn't help engagement, right? But the chance to lose unicorn, and it would be a very small chance, is kind of the cost, just not one that you bear every single time you play. When it comes to Twilight Tactics, you'll be able to choose which unicorn. If you lose a battle, and if one unicorn, if you're unlucky and you hit that very small chance for a unicorn to be burned, you'll have selected beforehand which unicorn is going to be the one that gets burned. So you'll have some agency in how or which unicorns get burned. But yeah, we really want a lot of engagement with these features. So trying not to put a lot of costs in the way of just playing is our way to kind of make it easy to engage with both the Shadowforge and Twilight Tactics.
All right. So most of the questions that I saw in chat, at least. Sparkly, did you have any others written down, or any hands up or anything?
Yes, so far these are all the questions that we have. Oh, we do have something for real Shadowcorn. Am I remembering correctly that in order to create a minion, you would need an adult corn with fully spent breeding points? That is incorrect, but this does pose a great question. Do we have any utility for unicorns with fully spent breeding points built into this game loop?
Not for, not for the Shadowforge, because unicorns aren't used in that. For Twilight Tactics, nothing about breeding points besides needing to use adults are part of it. We do have a feature coming that will have a breeding point aspect to it. I don't know how much has been shared about this feature that we're calling gems, but there will be
not much.
Okay, so I imagine we'll probably want to do another one of these AMAs once we're more ready to release info on that. But that is a feature that does reward having all the breeding points of a unicorn be used. So that's coming down the line. But in terms of Shadowcorn, like the Twilight Tactics event, breeding points won't factor into unicorn usage.
Yeah, and obviously they get more energy when they have less breed points. So
that's true. That's in game, but Twilight Tactics will be on chain, and so won't have an energy cost when using unicorn. We are looking into potentially a cooldown. So once you use a unicorn, you can't use it again for another battle for a period of time.
That's a good little note that it's outside of the game, so energy is not a factor here. Unicorns can participate in normal gameplay, and that's totally separate energy wise. That's I actually hadn't quite thought about that. Okay.
I'd also like to bring up something that Corbin Laguna said. So we will have a section included on the leaderboard and Shadowcorn page for our UDEM stash that's meant for the Shadowcorns. If you would like a granular breakdown, we are going to have it in our data warehouse. If you'd like access to our data warehouse, you can reach out to us on the Creator Resources channel, and we can set you up with that. You can also just tag me anywhere within the server, and I will be able to point you in that direction. Okay. We do have Goliath rules with questions for fun. You want to hop on? Say hi. We're giving you 10 seconds. Make it quick. Come on out. That LOL was already 3 seconds. Come here. Yeah, the shadow cards chased him away.
No, it's good. I'm excited about this this loop for a lot of reasons, but I think it has a good balance of there is some strategy. There is certainly some set it and forget it. It was designed around that mentality of, hey, I just want to check in once a week, reconfigure my stuff, collect my rewards, and let my Shadowcorns do all the work. So I think if that's sort of the general consensus around Shadowcorn holders of what they're looking for, and then obviously some more layers coming out in pieces in the months to come, then I think we're on the right path. So anyway, Goliath, what's up, man? Good to see you.
Hey, yeah. So yeah, we're gonna do a little Twitch stream later tonight. So if anybody can join us, we'll just kind of talk through some stuff. So I put a tweet out on that, but I wanted to ask a couple questions. So I'm a Shadowcorn holder. I got unicorns. Is there going to be some way of basically determining like what Shadowcorn sent the minion out to basically kill your unicorns? Because I'm just curious, like if one of my own Shadowcorns kills my own unicorn, that'd be kind of interesting.
So you want like the kill count, like StarCraft 2 style. Exactly. You can have the hero Marine where you're like, hey, this guy's got 15 fucking kills to his name. Look at this guy.
Exactly.
I don't think we had a plan for that, but Jeff, that might be worth a note for kind of like the UX team or something. Like it is a cool stat where you could see like lifetime kills on a Shadowcorn or something. Just food for thought.
Fun. That'd be fun. I mean, people would geek out on that. And then I guess the other question that I have is that is there an edge for mythics like in this process of basically getting in battles? I was in another discussion. I came in a little later. I don't know if you talked about that, but I'm just curious about that.
They do produce more husks, right?
Okay.
That's the big one. Is there more, Jeff?
In the Shadowforge feature by itself, it is mainly increases or bonuses to production of husks and items. When it comes to Twilight Tactics, they will confer a significant bonus to the minions that are fighting. So there'll be bonuses in both places, but for the Shadowforge, it's mainly just a productivity bonus.
Okay.
Any other? Sorry, one more thing. Okay. Some ritual NFTs. Actually, never mind. Forget that.
You're gonna flip some alpha? Come on, man. So
that's bad as false alpha.
Yeah, exactly. So the other thing I did see is like I've been playing the event with the quests and that, and I gotta say, you all have done a good job on really making it challenging to do quests with regards to mixing and matching and that kind of thing. I'm hopeful that you're going to do some improvements on sorting, because one of the things that I find in quests when I'm doing it is that it will prioritize the unicorns that are good for that land on a quest board, but I don't care about that for a quest. For a quest, I mean, it's independent. It doesn't have anything to do with like having a heart on a land. It has to do with what is the best stat for that quest. So I'm hoping that, when we get into play, you all basically will maybe do a different type of sorting for quest boards and maybe even do unicorn fights and stuff like that with regards to Shadowcorns. Just a piece of information, piece of thought. But yeah, I mean, I just got to say that if anybody hasn't played the quest, then you're missing out on the aspect of how important the stats are for things, and stats are key. So there you go. That's my 2 cents.
Awesome. Appreciate it. And coming out in 2.2.1, sorry, I just got an update from somebody internally mentioned that we'll have the sorting by stats to display highest stats on top, regardless of energy level. So I think that interface is going to get improved. I know that was suggested a couple weeks ago, this idea of being able to sort better by different stats instead of having to manually kind of go through. I've definitely felt that pain of like opening all the stats windows on my unicorn to figure out what the highest percentage is. In some ways, it's not that bad. In other ways, it's like, hey, I wish I could just, have a couple of sort columns here. So heard you loud and clear on that. Working on that. I think our interfaces will always just continue to improve. So keep it coming with feedback like that. I think it's always great to hear big ideas that are, overhauls and big changes. Sometimes we do have to think out of the box for really big stuff, but it's also great to hear suggestions for stuff that's like, hey, if you just tweak this like in this direction or have it default in this way, it's like low effort changes that have a high impact, those are always like the bread and butter. Like I consider those layups when it comes to game design. So definitely like always keep those coming. You know, I made a comment a week or two ago that somebody got upset about. If like I said, that's an easy thing to change. It's like, when you say that, it sounds like you don't care and you're just experimenting. It's like, no. It's not what I meant. I mean that changing a 3 to a 4 is an easy thing to do compared to implementing like a new framework or designing a new feature or something completely separate. So anytime, you know, we have a consensus of, hey, this number just needs to be changed, you know, that's very easy technically. So just something to keep in mind when we're thinking about changes and stuff, but keeping coming. We love it.
All right. Unfortunately, that is all time will permit. Thank you so much, Goliath Trolls. And thank you so much to everybody for showing up to the Minion Forge AMA. We will answer any other questions via text later. We will see you tomorrow for the internal team town hall with our marketing lead, Mitch V, and Zyori, marketing-focused members of the Unicorn family. Don't miss it. We'll post a recording of this AMA on our socials if you would like to give it a re-listen. Don't forget to share this with your friends and fellow unicorns who couldn't make it. If you have more burning questions, feel free to reach out on mod support and ask the devs. This has been the Minion Forge AMA Highlight, hosted by SparklyUnicorn with Stealthy Unicorn on tech. Good night, for there is no warning for Shadowcorn Strahd. Good night.